Experiences are real, but reality is a construct. This is something that is going to be a little more subtle, I think. My noodling on what it means to be a human being in this age, the age we are in, the age of fission. What does it mean to be a human being? And I have brought up different YouTubers occasionally that inspire me, either through my negative responses or positive responses. Both happen in me. And I want to just give some spontaneous and random insights from the studio based on the notion that reality is manipulated, but still experiences are real. So within the construct of what generally, I actually don't really like this term, the idea of matrix, but the idea of matrix is simply that we are not privy to the source of that which we experience. Nonetheless, we do experience. We have experiences, and the reason I know it's a construct, what is perceived as reality, is the amount of nasty, the amount of hurt that we are communicated. We listen to continuously reports that come through the ether, through the wireless, through the medium that expresses the noose. Let's not forget the noose. Let's make sure that everybody understands when I say noose. The noose, this is what we get. Let me fix my noose. So everyone that gets up in the morning and attaches the noose to their neck, this is in fact what you are doing. When you are a part of the noose, you attach the noose to your neck when you go to work. Anyway, I want to, this is something what really is close to me. I want to be able to present something of value that you can chew on. I've talked about this in terms of art quite often. The idea that there's really no point of me making a painting if I don't give you something to chew on. Something that you have that will give you something to think about, something that makes you feel, I never thought of that, or this is really quite interesting, or this is, exactly what I had imagined something to be. It's like I had some kind of sensibility or sensitivity about this subject, and it's confirmed because somebody else feels it. It's like something that is out there that makes sense other than me understanding it. So on my channel, and many other channels on YouTube have qualities that I appreciate, that confirm certain things that I think about and add to my perfection. The Borg add to my perfection. But here's something that I find, and there's no point in me just telling you what you already know, and some people may feel the same way, but what I generally find, and I'm posting on YouTube, and you say, well, just go and do your stuff and forget about YouTube, but it's something that I actually really enjoy. I enjoy being able to connect to 4 or 5 people that appreciate my thought process and what it is that I really find lacking, which is something that motivates me to continue to produce YouTubes in the face of extraordinary, epic difficulties that I believe we face as a species, as human beings. We have to come to terms with something that has been avoided in a collective context and also in an individual context. That as above, so below, I suppose, kind of comment. This is sort of the idea that it's almost an occult notion, as above, so below. Whatever happens on a large scale happens on a small scale within us and outside of us, externally. Although I have very few notions of what it means, the external world, what that actually means, because I think we have no clue what the external world is, because it's part of an incredible mystery. We can get a little bit more close to this mystery through our inner world, the way I have been talking about the inner world, how we understand the mystery we are existing in by understanding ourselves, the inner world, what comes out of our self, which is pummeled, which is denied, which is abused. We're always kept in the headlights of the story of others. We're always looking at other stories out there for a good reason. For a good reason, people, because it's very dangerous to begin to understand what it means to be you and me. Never mind the world out there in the big picture. The yellow jackets in France, I gotta say, I love those guys. I love those guys. They are the quintessential activists in terms of a country. They are incredible. I mean, in the Western world I'm talking about. These are the quintessential activists. They don't take no for an answer, these French guys on the road with their yellow jackets, these hornets, getting at the control group, making them back down. I have to say, I have like a real feeling of appreciation and attachment to that kind of a group of people that come out in the tens of thousands to say, we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going to buy your pablum. We're not interested in your shit. Now, a lot of people probably perceive this as basically, I say it's an economic riot. It started with the gas tax in France. I'm just going to deviate a little bit here, my perception of this, but more fundamentally, it's a filtering through of what I attempt to disseminate through my own channel, how I perceive the world functions out there, that we can no longer, we have an innate understanding, we can no longer work within this dysfunction. And it's manifested in different ways. You can go into the deep state and the idea of the Illuminati and the Masonic rites and the Tavistock institutes that basically control our reality. There is an innate understanding. We all have this. I am convinced we all have this, but we choose to have a pact with the devil. We romance the Grim Reaper. The devil gets us to romance the Grim Reaper, and we kind of treat life, even though we understand we're doing the wrong thing, we go along. And there is a breaking point at times, because the notion that this control group attempts to exercise breaks down when the sense of there is a fundamental offense. I find there is a fundamental offense you cannot cross and expect no reaction in what is considered to be still a human being. And I don't think this is an arbitrary insurrection in France. I think this is expressing a fundamental notion of what it means to be a human being, to say, I'm not going to go along with romancing the Grim Reaper. I don't have a contract with this cult, this death cult that is out there. This is magnificent. My heart goes out to these people, and I really appreciate what it is they're willing to do to sacrifice themselves. There have been some deaths and injuries, and the man will come and throw you in jail. So there are many people. What is this site? We Are Change, I think, is on the ground showing what is actually going on. The mainstream media is not showing what is really going on. So there are YouTubers and people out there that are actually on the ground giving us a picture of what really is going on. But that's not what I really want to talk about. I want to talk about that why it's true that reality as we understand it is fake. Now, there are people, and I'm going to refer again to this quantum of conscience, who has alerted me to a really interesting dissertation. He alerted me to a particular website, or not a website, a YouTuber called Sage of Key or K, Sage of Mike Williams guy. I'm gonna attach a link to this, and he goes into the McCartney issue about Paul is dead and all that. Just phenomenal. I think this is just absolutely fabulous and phenomenal. I'll attach a link to this. You got to see this, because it outlines the possibility that what we perceive to be functioning around us is completely constructed and on the highest level, meaning that I have always understood this in terms of art, that the artists like David Bowie or the Rolling Stones, and of course the Beatles, this is part of the link, that is created for our perception to see reality in a certain way. And to make sure, here is going to be the underlying insight that I have into this, is to make sure that there are plenty of victims that will subject themselves to the abuse that comes out of these very high echelons of control. And people say, well, you know, why do you think that reality, why would anybody want to manipulate reality and put the noose around your neck? And it's fundamentally this notion that I know it's being orchestrated because the reality we are living in is so nasty. And even if you are in the developed world, in Europe or North America or places that have convenience and comfort, there is a level of distress. And the distress, you can go into this yourself in terms of what I see now fundamentally, the illnesses, the phenomenal illnesses, the ubiquity of people being sick and relying on what are drugs and interventions, chemical interventions into our system. We have a very natural, adapted system to be who we are. We are not just sort of constructions of evolution that you have this guy Darwin coming out and saying, well, you were an ape. You were a monkey at some point. Well, Quantum of Conscience had a very wonderful conclusion. I don't know if it's his, but if we are evolved from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? You naturally have to understand that the constructs that are presented to us are so flawed, which is why I say I have no confidence in anyone proclaiming, especially if they wear a white coat, that they know what the hell is going on. And now this is a message to people who've understood that the white coats are full of shit. I'm talking about the academics and people that construct a vision of our existence based on a formula called science, for example, and they create all the worst of the worst chemicals, all the worst of the worst toxic materials that are spread into the environment that is threatening all of life, like the nuclear criminal syndicate who runs this show, because they are the jewel in the crown of the destruction that we are now subjected to in terms of just biological beings. We can't function with this, people. We cannot function with a level of toxicities. And no matter how many drugs and pharmaceuticals throw at you, what it is that they're producing to say, well, we're going to save your ass. If you get cancer, we're going to save your ass. It's totally untrue. The survival rate of cancer is zero after 5 years, or let's say only 2%. So the reason people are afraid, naturally, when the word cancer comes up, within the context of how we understand this idea of illness and sickness in consensual culture, cancer becomes like a major threat to our psyche. As soon as you say cancer, people go into a shell like a turtle. There's so many ideas I have along this path. But my focus today, here's my focus today, is I find myself, it is the presentations that I listen to on YouTube, for example, and people in my circle, friends that I have, seem to be quite oblivious to a solution to any of this. And I think we can come up, the mere fact that we know, we need to be informed. We need to understand that something is going on before I suppose, I haven't really thought about this, but can you change yourself without knowing what it is that you want to proceed or progress towards? I think, personally, I feel I need to understand certain things in order to have an opinion, even to say to you, something isn't working. Why isn't it working? Is you understand it by dissecting and saying, for example, Fukushima blew up. You have full core melt outs throughs. You have these reactors that blew up. And to say to yourself, well, it's a technology that's perfectly all right, except for the toxic material it produces. But you know what? It was disseminated by these explosions. Or the fuel pools that contain all these toxic elements, thousands of tons of these toxic elements have been disseminated into the environment, would not create a problem for us. there are people, I came across Paul Mobley, and he debunked this Forbid TV charlatan. I think that people who watch my videos probably watch this Paul Mobley guy, which is, I like the fellow, and he addresses specific issues about how this makes no sense. That you say, well, this Forbid TV guy has a Geiger counter, and we all know Geiger counters are calibrated just for very specific things. So you cannot determine the level of toxicity in the environment with a calibrated Geiger counter unless it's calibrated to the element that you're looking for. Anyway, this is a whole other story. The fact is, it's not, the reality that we live in is not working. Okay, that's my premise. It's not working. And the reason I know it's not working is because the level of hurt, pain, suffering, the level of nasty that is out there, you cannot avoid but recognize, even if you listen just to CNN News, or here in Canada, CBC News, or whatever the NBCs and ABCs and Deutsche Welle and RT, you get the idea that things are not working worldwide, which is part of what it is that is propagated. Like, it's the not working is actually normal. That's what I'm trying to say, that the not working is part of normal. Well, it's not. If your biological system is not working, you die. You die. In the same way, that which is not working out there will cause our demise, our death. So we need to fix it. And what is it that I can contribute to this notion of, fix it? Yeah. What do I contribute to the notion of fixing something? And here's always, I'm going to come back to this over and over. And I know people that have been watching me will say, I've heard you say this so many times. But this is crucial, something that I don't see happening among the crowd, among the YouTubers, like this Quantum of Conscience, who I like, who is very psychological within the framework of revealing how reality is not what it appears to be. Okay, you've done your job. What insight do you have? What is it that you have that you can serve to me to make a difference, other than knowing this is what's happening? And it's valuable. I say it's like to say this is going on out there, and then I look at it and I say, yes, this makes a lot of sense. I can attach myself to the idea that we are manipulated and controlled by a control group, whoever that is. I'd like to see a dissertation naming names, but it's impossible to do that, I think, because the curtain is quite large, and to identify the culprits behind the curtain is quite a monumental effort. But I'm feeling that we don't even need to go there. We don't need to identify these types and isolate them. They will be isolated by our behavior, how I behave. I will change the world that I live in by changing myself. The behavior that is as above, so below. As I change myself and other people change themselves, the change we are looking for, that which works, I'm really interested in things that work. So when it begins to work is when we begin to change ourselves. That's my conclusion. And we have to remove the noose. With the noose around our neck, we're never ever going to make a difference. And people, if you're wearing a tie, if you haven't caught on to this, the reference, the metaphor of this is you're wearing the tie, you're wearing the man's garb. You're wearing the ritual outfit that is expected of everyone who gets a paycheck, usually wears the noose. And I'm not talking about blue-collar workers. I'm talking as a metaphor. We're all part of this taking a paycheck. And a friend of mine often goes on about that money is the problem within the system. And I understand what he's talking about, because as long as in our experience right now that we're dealing with money, we're going to be seduced to love the man's world. So we have to somehow be able either to separate ourselves from this attachment to money or work completely outside of that system. And I don't see myself being able to work completely outside that system, but I know I'm not going to be seduced by it. So that's okay. Anyway, on this video, what it is that I wanted to communicate is that I'm not getting I'm not feeling satisfied listening to certain YouTubers who express their understanding of how this perceived reality is not what it appears to be. And I appreciate the content, but what I find truly lacking is what makes us transition. This is something that I feel is so ignored, or it becomes hijacked by the swamis and the gurus and the religions and the people that attach some external powerful force that'll make the difference, that when you die, you go to heaven, or you have some sort of concept about coming back and being reincarnated into another body, and you're going to be a gnat if you act like an asshole, like Hitler is now a gnat on the end of a dog's tail. It's ridiculous. This is of no value to me, other than being entertaining. I find this very entertaining. Yes, the notions of different religions, religious notions are extremely entertaining. I find myself caught up in it, and I can make paintings based on it and entertain you, but there is more to life than being entertained. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. What I'm looking for, maybe I'll call this video what I'm looking for in other people, and especially in YouTube, is to get some indication, other than understanding something, how it affects your life personally and how it affects my life personally. I'll say it to you. I have understood that there is a part of me that is so magnificent. There's like within the scheme of the structure of this existence that is around me, this is so elegant a part in me that I feel. It's called a conscience. This is so magnificent. It tops everything in what I've understood to be the meaning of the universe. This is like a God principle within each human being, that there is the knowledge of being able to do the right thing. And we can expose the reptiles, how they create dysfunction, but this will never change. This is my conclusion. all the wonderful YouTubers that are presenting us with the knowledge Kennedy was not killed by a bullet that hit like 5 directions and the buildings fell down because some guys with box cutters, all these understandings and insights really have very little impact. As you can see, the world has not improved since 9/11. The world, in fact, is a lot worse. And the person that was responsible for starting more wars than anyone in the history of presidency in the US, called President Obama, got the Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, and he started more wars than any other president previously. So you have to kind of accept the fact that the world as it is presented, we're presented with people that give us, what is that? They make us feel good. I have friends that love this Obama character and totally ignore the misdeeds he was involved in and all the subterfuge that is reality. So if we're going to be able to change, we have to separate ourselves from all that knowledge without ignoring it. We have to separate ourselves. I think this is I'll finish it here. This is my insight, that as much as I am capable of absorbing so much, I mean, my being is capable of only understanding and accepting and attaching, relating to something up to a point. It's sort of like understanding a mathematical problem. When I was in school, it took me a certain amount of time to figure out algebra. Once I'd mastered it, I could do the equations. But there is a way in which we actually master ourselves, and we can't go beyond this. And the simple solution to what I understand, a universal solution to the problems that we face in our personal lives, and also by extension to a collective problem that we face, is solved very simply. And I'll say it again. We begin to recognize this part in ourselves that is so, I feel almost euphoric the more I reflect on this, and I'm going to express it in my paintings, the sense of euphoria I have of knowing that I can do the right thing. In fact, a couple of nights ago, I woke up with in a state of anxiety. It was like 2:30 in the morning, and I'm waking up and I feel I can't sleep. It's because I said something the previous day to people that I felt really badly about. And it wasn't really specifically nasty. It was just something I felt bad about. And I woke up in the middle of the night feeling completely inadequate as a human being because I had ventured into saying something that I realized was totally uncalled for. And even if it was true, I should never have said it. And it gave me a sleepless night. An insignificant comment gave me a sleepless night. And I think this is really important to say. This is so important because the only way something will change if we are able to change ourselves. And I'm hoping to be strong enough and have the courage not to submit to my own consensual self and withstand the proclivities I may have to be on the side of nasty and be on the side of being helpful and a really substantive, positive solution. I want to be part of the solution. I just don't want to identify the problem out there. I want to be part of the solution. And I think this is something that it can't be taught. It's something that we have to be coming to in our own time, I suppose. But this is what I feel is lacking with, lacking is maybe the wrong word. I don't want to discourage anyone from fighting their fight. I always say, fight your fight. But a sense of self that includes this part at every moment of every day that is going to do the right thing is so essential in things changing. And the control group, the the Bilderbergers and the usual suspects, the Tavistock Institute, the Council on Foreign Relations, the governments, the churches, the scientific types, the academia, all the usual suspects. The infrastructure underneath our destruction can only be dismantled by a personal decision to do the right thing. And I came across it again. I'm going to attach a fabulous link to a guy talking about the whole deception around the Beatles and how all these cultural icons are propagated and produced out of a back room. I have always felt isolated from this. The reason my work is not accepted in the domain, in the public domain, I have understood that I'm producing something of value for you to chew on, but it's ignored, it's denied. I'm not able to make any inroads. And someone might say, you're just sour grapes. Well, that may be so. Yeah, I'm sour grapes. But the fact is that I know after 50 years of making paintings, I've understood something about what it means to make a painting. And why is it that only certain individuals rank within this hierarchy of public notice? What is that all about? I've understood there is some dysfunction there in terms of propagating a certain individual that has very little to offer other than a bunch of nasty. Like I say, out there, it feels pretty ugly and nasty the way we're presented with culture, what I call the culture of death. Why is this being propagated? Or how is this continuing by promoting the people that are not helping us come to this understanding what I'm talking about? And I think it would really behoove some of the YouTubers like Quantum of Conscience and this other YouTuber, what was his name? He exposes beautifully this, the Sage of Qui Radio Hour. Fabulous. I loved listening to this, who unravels the world as it appears and is not real. It's worthwhile looking at. I highly recommend this. I truly enjoyed this, but I come back to this very fundamental notion of ourselves. What is it that I have to offer you? And that is my own life representing who I am. I am what I am. It's like, hey, that's a biblical thing. I am that I am. It's like the bush, the burning bush, the biblical thing about the burning bush and Moses. I am that I am. Echi, or something like that. It was a brilliant revelation to us that we need to represent ourselves in our essence at all time. And what is our essence? We can do the right thing.